I think we're gonna start. This is it. This is all there is. This is what apparently happens. And there is no message because nothing can be added to what apparently happens and nothing can be taken away to what apparently happens. So it's naturally complete and it's naturally everything. And one could say what we would regard as the dream, or what we would discuss as the dream, so to speak, would be the assumption that there is someone who's separate, that there is a separate self, or that there is something called the self at all in the first place. And it seems to be that all the seeking or the complete seeking energy only happens for that center, for that assumed center, which is supposed to be me. And what we talk about here is that this whole impression, this whole experience to be someone, this whole experience to be something which is in here, some identity, some core, some deepest inner, that is real. It's not real. It's an illusion, superficially spoken. It doesn't have any substance at all. And so do all the consequences that seem to come out of that impression are illusory too. They don't exist. In that sense, there is no message. There's nothing that I can say to you what would be an answer or would be helpful in the end. Exactly, because this whole impression that there is someone who is on a path that could be spoken to, or on my side, that there is someone who could speak truth, so to speak, would be a part of that dream, would be an assumed reality. Cool. All right. It's because of the recording. Okay, so I go on with the first question, which I already received. Where desires has they place here? Sexuality, money? Well, it depends on what you would regard as desire, because in order for there to, money is what happens, so to speak, and the need for money is what apparently happens, and sexuality can happen. That's all what apparently happens. What I would regard as desire is the assumption of the person that I need those things in order to be a fulfilled person, or in order to become a fulfilled person. So this kind of desire, so to speak, would just be part of the dream. It's an illusory desire that I need things in order to become a fulfilled person, or in order for being a fulfilled person. That desire would be just part of the dream. But money is what apparently happens, and sexuality, maybe. And money, maybe, of course, as well. I mean, yeah. In that sense, there is no desire. There is no real desire. Or there is no need for desires to be fulfilled. Maybe it's that way around. Seen from the person, the experience of I need that is, of course, seems to be real, of course. But the assumption that I really need things in order to be a happy person, that's part of the dream. Not because the person can be happy without the things. The thing is that the whole impression to be a person is a dream. There just is no person. And just while I'm talking, a lot of spirituality is about making the person happy. And of course, big parts of the spiritual search is, for example, the person should somehow be able to be a happy person without needing things. That's, of course, an unsolvable task. That's a mission that can't be fulfilled, to become a happy person in the first place, by whatever the conditions are supposed to be. Because, as I said, the whole impression to be a person who could be happy or unhappy are the illusion. So on the one hand, it's the worst thing that you can tell someone, to just be happy. Don't make an issue, just be happy. Yeah, all right. Okay, next question. And hi, Andreas, how a non-me sees evil. For me, I get really upset and sad every time I experience or see violence or evil in the world, especially towards the young, innocent, or helpless. I'm very sensitive to anything evil. Yeah, that's all right. I mean, there isn't, the thing is that there isn't a certain way of seeing things. There isn't a certain way of, like, I have an attitude towards, my attitude towards violence. What is your attitude towards violence as a non-me? Well, that does not exist. There isn't a state called non-me, and there isn't a certain attitude that I have. So when I see something or read about something, there can be any kind of reaction, and it could, of course, be also anger, or, of course, it can make angry, the stuff what seems to be going on. Yes, but not because there's someone really sees evil or has a conditioned reaction towards what's being seen. Like, yes, to feel angry when you see something certain, or yeah. And so, yeah, it can be sad or painful, whatever. Apparently, of course, not because there is someone. Okay, next question. You say the person doesn't exist. What does exist? Well, there isn't anything that exists. The dilemma is, if there is no person, there is no one who could have a look what actually exists. That's the thing. Or on the other way around, it would just be the person having a look. Let's see. From this standpoint, from this point of experience, there goes some, in this inquiry about what exists, you would already need something in the first place. So nothing really exists. And the next question is, the liberation is a shift of energy. Yes and no. It depends on how you want to describe it. When you say that the sense to be a person is an energetic experience, the death of that might be described as a shift in energy. But it's not a shift in energy for someone. That's the thing. It's not just me gaining another experience, or me coming from one certain experience to another certain experience. In that sense, it's not a shift of energy. I mean, in the end, there is no real shift anyway. The shift story is already part of a story, like me present, me absent, me, no me, which in the end turns out as the illusion. That whole paradigm of there being two states, two different states, turn out to be the dream. When the story, one could say, the experience to be a person, which seen from the person feels utterly real, just melts away. That can be described as a shift. It's an apparent shift, though. Okay, next question is, hi Andreas, can you say a few words about real and unreal? I get the real, but can you describe unreal? Well, not really. because it's exactly the no, this can't be described. Unreal can't be described, and real and unreal can't be described. How that is, how that actually is, cannot be known, what this means. And exactly, that's the person's dilemma, so to speak, that it only lives in reality. That's its impression, that's its assumption, by experience, of course. I'm real, and everything that I'm aware of seems to be real as well. How it is when that drops and things just remain themselves, but turn out to be not things anymore, turn out to be undivided, this can't be. This can't be known. It's impossible. It's impossible. And that's also the dilemma. In order to get that everything is unreal, you would again need something that is real, namely the getting of it, namely the one who wants to really get unreal. And that's the apparent dilemma of the person. It wants to really get that itself isn't real. The question is, unconditional love is also unknowable. There are some non-dualists saying everything is unconditional love, yet that seems like it is known. Yes, it can be both things. One could say all there is unconditional love, but yes, it's blind. It doesn't know itself. It's unknowable. Yes. What is unknowable. Sitting in front of a screen is unknowable, which is unconditionally itself. That's why it's unknowable. Of course, seen from the personal standpoint, it may sound, maybe some people claim that they see it, of course. But on the other hand, the person's assumption is that this is something that somehow can be seen, that this is to some degree, it is a personal experience, and that it can become a conscious reality. And yes, that would be the dream. That's impossible. Also, what I speak about is not a personal experience. There won't be anyone becoming aware of it and then be freed by being aware. Hello, by being aware. No. So yes, of course. Love is blind. It's blind. It doesn't know itself to be love. That's why it's unconditional. It doesn't even recognize itself to be love. It doesn't need that. What apparently happens, doesn't need to recognize itself as anything. It's totally and utterly unconditional. It doesn't say yes and no to anything. It's totally neutral, which is unconditional love. It's neutral towards anything. No preference, all those things. But it's not anything that anyone can become or anyone has to become. That's maybe part of many spiritual traditions, the idea that you as a person have to become that consciously, that this could become your conscious reality. That would be just part of the dream, of course. That's working on something which isn't required. Okay, the next question is, but this desire for liberation, from where comes? Well, it just is what apparently happens. It doesn't really come from anywhere. It just is what apparently happens. The unknown appearing as the sense to be someone, having, searching for something. And in some cases, this something is called liberation. For others, it's called a bigger car or whatever. Yeah. Yeah. And one could say it's just part of the seeking drive. It's just part of the impression to be someone. They can't be divided really. It's not that there is a person and additionally the person seeks or has a desire for liberation. In a way, the impression to be someone is, you can't separate the need for something, the assumption that there is an additional realization. They just go together somehow. And the question is, love seems very human. Yes. Or the person has a very personal story about what love is and what not, what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. So in that sense, there is no real love, of course. Okay, next question. Can you say something about the mystery of life? What is that? Well, unfortunately, I can't really say anything about the mystery of life because there isn't a real mystery of life. It's not, it's, yes, what is or what apparently happens is totally unknowable, of course, but without anyone observing or asking for it, it's not even mysterious. Everything just is itself. And in that sense, it's totally ordinary and normal. Nothing is special in that sense. So it's not a real, there isn't a real mystery going on. But yes, there is no explanation for anything. There is no answer to why. So within that setup of why, what is or how it is will remain a mystery, of course. But without that question of why, without that becoming aware within existence, without that, there isn't anything really mysterious about anything. So I'm unable to answer what the mystery of life is. Okay, next question. After liberation, you need vigilance. I have to look that word up. No, that's the good news. So the question is, after liberation, you need vigilance. You can identify again, fall from heaven, as it say. Well, not really, because after liberation, so to speak, which is a story, this whole idea of awareness and vigilance or falling asleep again doesn't make sense anymore. Liberation, so to speak, is totally and absolutely effortless because it's not a state. It's not a certain position that someone is in. It's not a state that has to be kept up, and it's not a state that someone is aware of. So there is no need for vigilance, if that's, or for being aware of, and to be attentive, to not fall in traps anymore. My impression is, but that's a story, of course, I don't know, my impression is that those ideas come from the standpoint of awakenings, because some people would mistake liberation, or would mistake an awakening as liberation. So the moment when there is no one anymore, and afterwards you are back. And it's a bit like as if the person has seen that there is no one, not just conceptual. It is like as if it was really, oh, damn, there really is no one. But afterwards, of course, you are there and you live in the dream of the need to be aware and to not fall in traps and to get lost in the story again. But those would all be part of the personal experience anyway. So, and in liberation, one could say this whole thing turns out to be an illusion, to be on a path, that there is a right or wrong, that there is anyone at all, that there is any kind of realization possible even. So in that sense, this whole concept doesn't really make sense anymore. Okay, next question. Hello, Andreas. After liberation, is there constant deepening? Well, no, no. There is, I mean, there is nothing that gets deeper. That's the thing. When there is no one, there is no experience of things going on anymore. So there isn't a process of deepening and deepening. But maybe what seems to be happening is that the consequences of the experience to be separate get less and less. So that may look like a deepening, but there is no experience of something getting deeper at all. It's not that there is no one and 5 years later there is even more no one. My long rides, there is, sorry, I wouldn't, yeah, well, there is no depth. Yes, exactly. Yes. There's no depth to anything. I mean, what I just meant, I mean, what seems to be happening, that most people somehow build up, which is what apparently happens, just build up a life around their needs and about what they think were fulfillment lives. So they may work for 80 hours a week, they may gain a lot of money, or they may see spiritual teachers or gurus or whatever. So of course, when there is no one, all this life, which seems to have been built around this desire to become whole, of course, those drop. And over the year, that's the thing, why suddenly you might not go to a guru anymore. Or whatever the idea was. Just because because there's nothing there anymore which needs which seeks a certain fulfillment in circumstances. Okay, next question. You still get angry? Well, of course I don't get angry. But yes, anger seems to be happening. Apparently, of course. There's the apparent world holds a lot of potential for becoming angry. Yes, apparently. Yeah. You still fall in love? Yes and no, not really. It's the same thing with falling in love, because of course there can be all kinds of feelings. In that sense, falling in love can happen. But my impression is that falling in love also has a lot to do with the idea that finally you found the right person. So when there is falling in love happening, the person usually gets high on this story of this is the right one and we will live happy forever or something. So there is no assumption of there being fulfillment in it. But oh yes, but love can have feelings of love. Yeah, absolutely. Even unexpectedly. Next question. That's tell me more about anger. Um, we usually think we need someone to be angry and something to be angry about. Yes, that's what the person usually thinks, that it is someone, and that what it gets angry about is a separate happening. The thing just is that there just is no one, and that there already is no separate outside world which you really can become angry about. The whole thing just is what apparently happens. You, as you apparently are, and your feelings and your reaction towards what seems to be outside. There's just no one in it. And it could be anything. I mean, it could be anger, it could be joy, it can be sadness. In the end, that's just what apparently happens. Of course, things that make you angry or not. Yeah. Maybe, but that's a story. You can't really draw a line here. I mean, when there is the illusion to be a person, there might be an additional game going on, like chewing on the story that whatever anger wouldn't be experienced as whole, and there would be a whole personal dance around what happens, but you can't really draw a line and say, this is one thing and this is the other thing. So yeah, getting angry just happens. One could say maybe when there is no one, there's no need to remain angry. But there's no one in control anyway, so. Yeah, thank you. Next question. Andreas, has your message changed over the years? Like being refined? Do the words used more closely approximate this message? I think I know already what you will respond. Not really. Well, I was going to say that, but well, but those are two things in a way. Has it been refined or has it changed? And no, it hasn't changed. There isn't a message in the first place which could change. Um, yes, by answering, by having a lot of question and answers, it seems to be. I have to check if I really know what refine is exactly. Yeah, I mean, there may be an apparent refinement, but this didn't change the message at all. So it was all kind of being said right away. There's not, there hasn't been something new coming in. Next question. You said is nothing to gain, but nobody believes you. Yes, that's true. Yeah, basically because there is no one. The person would love to believe it, to be honest, or that's the only thing that the person could try to do, to at least believe it. But yes, no one does, of course. But I'm not trying to convince anyone either, so I'm fine with that. In a way, the whole meeting is based on this dynamic, on this apparent dynamic. So next question. So would there be, it refers to this being in love thing. So would there be, this isn't the one as just happening? Oh yes. Oh yeah, of course. The apparently the brain can bring about that information. Oh, this isn't the one that I want to live with. Or oh, of course, yes. Yes, the next state is you have changed even though there is no one. Yes, of course. Yes, of course. I mean, there isn't anything which stays the same. So what seems to be happening is apparent change. I think I'm more talkative now. So the first few years were pretty much saying there is no one. This hasn't changed, but I'm more creative meanwhile on saying that there is no one. It never became something like, oh, suddenly there still is no one.
So you become a magician at finding 1,001 ways to say the same thing.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I've become an expert in saying nothing. Usually this field was taken by politicians, but we are making up.
Just don't start operating payment by results.
Sorry, again?
Just don't start offering payment by results, otherwise you'll really struggle.
No, I wouldn't dare to.
Yeah.
No. But I think it's the same with politicians, actually.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
There is more laughter happening, apparently, someone wrote. Wow, that's lovely. But you know me also for a long time. The statement is, from my perspective, more relaxed, more humorous, more fun, more creative, more entertaining, more casual, and easygoing. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't do it. If it is like that at all, but maybe that's what apparently happens. Yes. Probably in one way, it's not even that I got those things more. It's probably rather that I guess less stressed and less serious and less whatever, you know. Yeah. question. The brain has connection with liberation. Well, not really. For stupid people. No, no, it is no. There, in that sense, there's no connection at all, because for stupid people is any. Oh, sorry, this wasn't finished. Well, the thing is, it just doesn't have anything to do with understanding. So, no, there's no connection between thinking, brain, and liberation. Because I mean, what's being pointed out here is that this whole concept of liberation is nothing but a concept. That there isn't any additional realization at all. So it has nothing to do with intelligence or understand the concepts or cleverness or get the clue or somehow find the truth in all those concepts. There's absolutely no connection between intelligence and analyzing and clarity, also intellectual clarity. Nothing, not a single bit. No, no. I haven't thought it through. Or maybe I have thought it through, but the result was empty. I don't know. I thought a lot of things through, to be honest, but there was never an end to it. It was useless. It didn't give me anything. So stupid remain stupid? Yes, one could say so, yes. I mean, whatever that is, really, you know.
Andreas.
Yes.
There's nowadays there's a lot of talk about the Great Awakening, which seems to be political, but also it has some spiritual aspect. Do you see anything happening like that?
Not really.
Is there any link with what you are speaking about?
No, I don't think so. No, at least totally not from the position that they come, so to speak. Oh, but you know, I don't know much about it, so I don't really know what they come from. I mean, what I find interesting, for example, but no, I can't really go there because I don't know. I just don't know.
Okay, well, yeah, well, they're speaking about going from the fourth to the fifth dimension, and someone gave a description of the dimensions, and then he was speaking about the seventh dimension, and then I thought, okay, well, that sounds like non-dualism. That sounds like your.
I mean, you know, this is just, I know I could make up, if you want, one could make up that story. I think I talked to someone about that quite a while ago. It is kind of interesting that somehow the idea of there not being a separate person to some degree enters the mainstream, for example. But
Okay.
for me, it's a bit like this message. It's sneaking in. It's not because I sit here and say that there is no one. It's not happening because some people claim the world wakes up. It's somehow coming, it's sneaking in. No one really notices it. On the other hand, that's what Tony sometimes says, that this whole idea of authority at least partly crumbles. I mean, no one believes anymore that the American president is godlike, or the Pope, or the Dalai Lama. Somehow, no one really still buys in those stories. And every guru, you know, today there is some hidden secret YouTube video of a guru, how he gets angry at someone and shouting at someone. So these are kind of all apparent aspects of this message. You know, there is no hierarchy, there is no one, there is no, and somehow this seems to sneak in from all kinds of sides. But on the other hand, one could see that if one wants to.
Okay. Yeah.
But you see, I mean, we talked about it, about the dangers of this time and with controlling and what the artificial intelligence brings up. So we basically just don't know. But awakening, the idea of awakening is a very personal one. And that's my impression, that those, even in those political circles, they usually think of, we are someone, I am someone, and we can wake up to the actual truth, or to something what actually happens. And I pretty much doubt that, to be honest.
Yeah, it depends on what's going to be revealed.
Of course, I mean, from a
on the political level.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. It's a bit like, I mean, just from the example, it's maybe someone who grew up in the Nazi time and afterwards found out that it was a dictatorship or something, you know. So both would be just part of a personal relationship. Or it's like with a partner who betrays you. You always thought that he was loyal, but then you find out that he's betraying you. It's just, of course, the person would see, oh, I woke up to how it really is. Of course. In the end, it would be the dream that there really is someone in him. And that the person is better off knowing that the partner wasn't loyal. Maybe it was even better before, but yeah, well. In that sense, this whole message doesn't really have anything to do with waking up, or the idea that's behind the picture of waking up. But in the story, I'm very open for all kinds of weird things to be revealed. I'm very open to the idea that what I see isn't real. Isn't how it really is.
Yeah, I could give you some weird examples, but
Oh, I guess so. Oh,
yes.
no, of course. I wouldn't be too surprised, probably.
Yeah.
Not because I really think that it can be like that, but just whatever. In a way, whatever. It's all possible.
Yeah, you know, I spoke already about Angela Merkel, the daughter of Adolf Hitler.
For example, yeah.
Yes, and also Theresa May is
It wouldn't change much for me, by the way, but
No.
yeah.
So Theresa May is her sister or half sister.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll check it out. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well, yeah. We'll see.
Yes.
Okay, next comment. I can't. Yeah.
Well, I have the impression that Trump is the brother of Case.
Oh.
Trump is the brother of Case.
Ah, all right. Yeah, would be all right for me too. So. Okay, next comment. I can't to ask you of any questions because I know your answer. There is nothing you can be understand. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Woof. Next comment is Tony is sometimes referring to quantum mechanics, something that science is trying in quantum mechanics, communicate the same message. Yes, but somehow missing the point. Are you familiar with this? I'm now reading about David Bohm, and he maybe somehow came close to this. Well, I'm not too familiar with the exact, what they exactly do in science. But of course, I mean, basically they found out, I don't know if it was mathematics or physicists or anyone. I mean, they basically found out that there is nothing as reality. I know 5 years ago or 10 years ago, it was a bit like reality exists when there is an observer. But meanwhile, they completely deleted the idea of there being an observer, and they completely actually deleted the idea of there being a certain kind of reality. But of course, for someone who experienced themselves as someone, it just remains a concept. As long as there is someone experiencing themselves as someone, there is the experience to be separate. And all those what you found out, what you can do with a computer, and is just empty information. It just remains conceptual. There was, I know it was some years ago, someone showed me a video of a scientist, 5 minutes something. And in the first 2 or 3 minutes, he was presenting his results. And yes, it sounded pretty much like this message. And in the second part, the second 2 or 3 minutes, he was asked what he thinks that it means. And then he was saying what this means to him, and it was sounded very esoteric and very spiritual. Namely, we should all love each other, and nothing is separate, and all this stuff. And it was quite obvious that he didn't really. The only possibility for him still was to draw personal conclusions, what this means for him as a person. On the other hand, there is just no big difference to spirituality. Because, for example, if you do this practice like, who am I? Or if you are asked to seek for the person, one possible outcome is that you don't find anyone. It's basically the same thing. You start an inquiry and you end up with the same result. Oh, but I didn't find anything anyone within myself. The dilemma again is that there's someone left with this result. And it's the same with science. Basically, it's the person inquiring into reality, the scientists in the outside universe, and the spiritual seeker within the inside universe. But it's, again, someone inquiring into the experience, someone inquiring into an assumed separate reality. And yes, on the one hand, one could say they seem to come to the same conclusion, or not really, they seem to come to a conclusion, but just are left as being someone having another conclusion. Yes. Yes, it's still a personal view. Well, apparently it doesn't really say about the empty information, like there is no one or there is no reality. But seen from the person, it's just a useless information. I mean, it's useless information anyway, because it's empty. But of course, the person would still long for fulfillment. It would just need to go on seeking, and it would still go on living in this dreamt reality of there being a real world and of there potentially be an answer within that world. And just, I go on, that's what you meant, but somehow missing the point. Exactly. The point is, the apparent missing of the point is that they usually come from a separate standpoint still. So next question, but if inquiry, the result is the disappearing the I. Well, that's the thing, not really, no. The illusion to be a person melts away for no reason. It's not the successful end of the seeking career. It's not finding out by someone inquiring. It's the death of the inquirer. It turns out that the inquirer is a dream. And liberation, so to speak, would be the collapse of the inquiry for no reason. I mean, I know some people, they do this who am I for decades, and they know that there is no one. They can say, I've seen it 1,000 times, there is no one. I have, by experience, not just by trying to believe that there is no one. They have, so to speak, it's in the story, but they have looked 1,000 times and they never found anyone, but still somehow they have survived their own inquiry. Because still this whole setup is part of the dream, that there is someone who needs to have a look, that there is someone who needs to come to a conclusion, and that liberation or fulfillment is a conclusion. And in that sense, it completely isn't. Yes. Yes. But disappearing, I dies. Well, yeah, of course, in a way. The disappearance of the person is the death of the person. But by it turning out that there is no person in the first place, of course. Yeah, I don't understand. Yeah. All right. One could also say that apparently the illusion to be a person dies despite of the person trying to survive. Yes, that's a good one. I think, so as a comment from someone, I think in psychology, it seems that the collapse of the me has to be avoided at any price, because it would supposedly be then madness. Yes, I think psychology is also the last resort in science, which still doesn't deny the separate person. I think they still somehow have to keep it up. That's true. Okay, the question was, can you explain again, please, to this self-inquiry? Well, the assumption of the person is that it is in a process in time and space, and that it is seeking, and that its seeking, whatever the method is, that its seeking will lead to a result. And when that result happens, I am liberated or I am enlightened. So I do self-inquiry, and when I find out that there is no one, when I'm really convinced, when I saw it enough times, when it becomes more and more my conviction and more my reality, then I will be free. And the thing is, what's being said here is that this whole setup is an illusion. The dream is that seeking leads to a real result, which ends the seeking. So liberation, as I would describe it, so to speak, is the sudden end of the seeking, and it's the sudden end of the seeker without coming to an answer, without knowing how it is, without finding an answer, without arriving in the right circumstance and all those things. And the big surprises, but this can't be explained really, the big surprise is that what happens, what already is, so to speak, is just naturally okay. It is just fine, without having an answer, without having the experience to have arrived, without having, of course, the experience to be on a path and all those things. It was just okay all the time, right away, exactly as it was. There is no additional realization, and there is nothing to do or to not do. There is no one on a path. In that sense, every method, everything that you believe that you need to do or that you do is all part of the dreamt setup, which starts or which is based on the assumption that there is someone in the first place. In that sense, no method leads anywhere. Nothing that you do or not do will you can gain something from it in regards of this liberation process or anything. There is nothing to gain. Okay, in that sense, this is it. There is nothing to gain. There is no spirituality. There is no path to walk. There are no steps to take and all those things. What apparently happens is just timelessly itself. It's not a circumstance. It's not a fixed reality that can be held on to or that can be known or owned and all that things. No, there's just being you, being me, looking to a screen, moving away from the screen, eating, so whatever. That's it. There's nothing else. There's no beyond. It's just simply as it is. Thank you very much. And I wish you a wonderful day. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andreas.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. Have a nice day.
Andreas.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Andreas.
Thank you.